When you are young, it feels almost natural to measure your worth by how many people you can keep happy, how many opinions you can balance, and how much approval you can collect. You stretch yourself thin, agreeing to things you never wanted to do, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, saying yes when every part of you is screaming no. And for a while, you convince yourself this is the way life is supposed to work. You keep thinking if you just keep everyone else comfortable, if you smooth over every disagreement, if you never make anyone upset, you'll finally feel secure. But older women have lived long enough to realize that this way of living steals your peace, and no amount of outside approval can replace the peace you sacrifice when you trade your own well-being for the temporary comfort of others. There comes a point when you begin to notice the cost of people pleasing, and it always costs more than you thought. It costs your time because you spend hours in situations you never wanted to be in. It costs your energy because you drain yourself trying to meet expectations that keep shifting. It costs your identity because after a while you forget what you actually want. Older women reach the stage where they stop running that race, not because they don't care about people, but because they've realized caring about everyone's comfort above their own happiness is a game you can never win. That shift doesn't happen overnight. It's earned through years of trial and error, through disappointment, through seeing how much life gets wasted on unnecessary obligations. Peace becomes more valuable than being liked, and once they taste what real peace feels like, they refuse to let it go. Peace is not having to apologize for who you are. Peace is choosing the invitations you want to accept and declining the ones that drain you. Peace is knowing you can walk away from gossip, drama, and noise without guilt. And when you experience that kind of peace, it feels like breathing for the first time after holding your breath for years. That is why older women will guard it so fiercely, because once you understand how rare it is, you stop giving it away just to earn the approval of people who would never sacrifice the same for you. People-pleasing thrives on the fear of disappointing others, but older women learn that disappointment is not fatal. You can let someone down, you can say no, you can refuse to meet an unreasonable demand, and the world will not end. In fact, the people worth keeping around will respect you more for it. It's the ones who only value you when you are bending that will disappear, and that ends up being a blessing, not a loss. With experience comes the confidence to let people walk away and still feel whole, because peace is no longer negotiable, and they know what it's like to live without it. Peace doesn't look the same for everyone. For some, it's a quiet morning with no interruptions. For others, it's saying what they mean without softening every word for fear of offense. For some, it's simply resting without guilt after years of running themselves into the ground. The details may change, but the lesson remains the same. Peace is chosen. It is protected. It is not handed out like candy to everyone who demands it. People-pleasing scatters your energy in 100 directions, but peace focuses it back on what matters most. And that focus is what allows older women to move through life with a steady calm that younger people often envy but rarely understand. When you see an older woman say no without hesitation, when you watch her leave a room instead of forcing herself to stay, when you notice how little she worries about being misunderstood, you are watching someone who has chosen peace over people-pleasing. That choice is not selfish, it is survival, it is wisdom earned from years of watching what happens when you try to keep everyone else happy while ignoring yourself. The quiet confidence she carries is built on the foundation of all the times she ignored her own needs in the past and discovered it only left her emptier. The truth is, people-pleasing is a weight and peace is freedom. And the reason older women keep this truth behind closed doors is because it's not something you can fully understand until you've lived it, until you've reached that breaking point where you decide the noise of the crowd will never be louder than your own peace. When most people think about strength, they picture someone who never bends, never cries, never admits to struggling, someone who can carry the world on their shoulders without ever letting it show. That's the image of strength we grow up with, but older women know it's not real. They've lived through enough to understand that strength often hides behind vulnerability, and what looks like weakness to the world is often the bravest thing you can show. Vulnerability is not about falling apart, it's about being honest enough to say, I don't have it all together right now, and that kind of honesty takes far more courage than keeping up a perfect mask that fools no one in the end. Life has a way of teaching this truth slowly, through pain, through relationships, through moments when pretending doesn't work anymore. You can only hold it together for so long before the cracks begin to show, and younger people spend so much energy trying to patch those cracks instead of admitting they exist. But older women stop wasting their time with appearances because they know real strength is not in looking unbreakable, it's in choosing to show up even when you are broken. It's the strength to keep walking into the storm without pretending the rain isn't hitting you, and it's the strength to let people see that storms are part of life, not something to hide. Vulnerability allows connection in a way perfection never can. Think about it. When you meet someone who never struggles, never admits fault, never opens up, you don't feel close to them, you feel distant. But when someone lets their guard down, when they admit fear, pain, or doubt, it draws you closer, it creates trust, it builds relationships that are real instead of polished performances. Older women understand this deeply because they've seen how many connections are lost when everyone is too busy pretending. They know that being vulnerable doesn't make you less. It makes you more relatable, more human, and ironically, more respected by those who matter. Strength through vulnerability also means refusing to carry shame for being human. Society often tells women to be strong at all costs, to never cry, to never admit when they can't handle something, but older women reject that message. They've been through enough loss, heartbreak, and challenges to realize that pretending strength only isolates you, while owning vulnerability creates resilience. Resilience doesn't come from never falling, it comes from getting up after you fall, and that requires being honest enough to admit when you're down. Vulnerability is what makes resilience possible because you can't rise if you never admit you've been on the ground. There's a quiet dignity in vulnerability that often goes unnoticed. When an older woman shares her truth, when she admits she was scared, when she talks about the nights she cried alone, when she owns the mistakes she made, she's not lowering herself, she's elevating the conversation. She's showing others that being human is nothing to hide, and that message is a gift to those who still believe they have to carry everything in silence. The courage to be vulnerable becomes a light for others, guiding them to drop their own masks and breathe freely for the first time. You see, true strength isn't about walls, it's about doors. A wall keeps everyone out. It looks solid, but it leaves you alone. A door opens selectively, it still protects, but it allows trust and intimacy to enter when it's safe. Older women learn to build doors instead of walls. And that's what vulnerability really is, the ability to let others in at the right moments, to share pieces of yourself that are real and raw without apology. That balance of honesty and strength is what sets them apart because they've discovered the power that comes with being both tough and tender at the same time. The world will always confuse vulnerability with weakness, but those who have lived long enough know better. They know that revealing your scars is stronger than hiding them. They know that asking for help takes more bravery than pretending you don't need it. And they know that vulnerability is not a sign of breaking down, but a sign of refusing to be fake. Older women understand this truth because they have carried enough battles alone, and they have learned the freedom that comes when you finally let yourself be seen. There's a stage in life when possessions feel like the ultimate goal: the car, the house, the clothes, the things you can hold in your hands that make you believe you've accomplished something. People chase them endlessly, thinking once they have enough, they'll finally feel complete. But older women know better. They've lived long enough to see how possessions lose their shine, how the excitement of something new fades faster than you expect, and how you can fill a closet or a garage without ever filling the emptiness inside. Time, on the other hand, doesn't fade. It only becomes more valuable because once it's gone, it doesn't return. They've seen how easily life can take a turn, how quickly circumstances can change, how someone you love can be there one day and gone the next, and those lessons make them view time differently. When you lose someone, you don't wish you had given them more gifts, you wish you had given them more moments. When you look back on your younger years, you don't remember the things you bought nearly as clearly as you remember the experiences you had. Older women carry that perspective, and it changes how they spend their days because they know the most expensive thing in life isn't bought with money, it's spent with time. Time teaches them to prioritize differently. Instead of saying yes to everything that fills a calendar, they start saying yes to what fills their soul. Instead of working endless hours for the next thing, they work wisely so they can spend their energy on what matters. Instead of trying to impress people with what they own, they care more about leaving behind memories that last longer than any possession ever could. That's why older women can seem so calm about letting go of things, because they've realized the real wealth is not in what sits on a shelf. It's in the seconds, minutes, and hours you invest with people who matter. There is also a wisdom in how they protect their time. They don't waste it on arguments that go nowhere. They don't spend it chasing approval from people who will never be satisfied, and they don't allow every demand on their schedule to take priority. They've learned that giving away time carelessly is just as dangerous as giving away trust carelessly. Each yes is a piece of life you can't reclaim, and that awareness forces them to weigh decisions more carefully. To outsiders, it may look like they're being selective, but in truth, they are just valuing what they know can't be replaced. Older women also understand that possessions can be taken, but time spent well can never be stolen. A storm can wipe away a home, finances can be lost, valuables can disappear, but no one can erase the memory of sitting with a loved one. No one can steal the laughter shared with friends. No one can undo the peace of a quiet evening spent reflecting. Those moments become part of who you are, and that permanence is why they treasure time far more than things. They stop asking how much something costs in money and start asking how much it costs in time, because time is the only currency that never increases. You'll often see this lesson show up in the way they slow down. They linger in conversations instead of rushing through them. They savor meals instead of eating in a hurry. They pay attention to small details younger people overlook because they know those little details often become the memories that matter most. When you stop rushing for possessions and start savoring time, life feels richer, fuller, and far more meaningful. Older women embody that richness, not because they own more, but because they see more in the moments others let slip by. Time being more precious than possessions is not just a belief, it's a way of living. It's why they protect their mornings, why they invest in relationships, why they walk away from stress that isn't necessary, and why they hold on to the simple joys that make a day worth remembering. They've spent enough of their years trading time for things only to learn that things don't last. But the way you spend your time shapes the story of your life, and that story is the one thing you carry with you until the very end. There are struggles you see and struggles you don't, and older women have mastered the art of carrying the ones you don't see with a grace that makes people underestimate what they've been through. Behind the smiles and the calm way they move through life, there are often battles no one knows about, battles with health, battles with family, battles with regret, and battles with the passing of time itself. Younger people sometimes mistake that calmness for an easy life, but the truth is the calmness comes from surviving storms that would have broken others, storms they chose not to broadcast because not every pain needs an audience. Grace is how they carry the weight without letting the world see them stumble. It is not that they don't feel the heaviness, it's that they've learned complaining doesn't lighten it. They know how to endure without demanding constant recognition. Not because they want to be invisible, but because they've realized resilience doesn't always need applause. In private, they may cry, they may doubt, they may question why life handed them certain burdens, but in public, they carry themselves with dignity, not out of pride, but out of strength. It takes a deep kind of courage to keep showing up for others, to keep offering kindness, even when your own heart is tired, and that is the grace older women embody when they carry their unspoken battles. The unspoken part of those battles is what makes them powerful. Everyone wants to share victories, but not everyone wants to share struggles. And older women understand that not every struggle belongs in the open. Some are too sacred, too personal, too raw to place in the hands of others who may not treat them with care. Instead, they process them quietly. They pray, they reflect, they write, they walk, they allow themselves to heal in ways that don't demand attention. By doing that, they preserve their dignity and protect the parts of their story that are not meant for everyone. Carrying battles with grace also means choosing not to let bitterness take root. Life has given them unfairness, it has handed them loss, it has shown them betrayal, but they refuse to let those experiences harden them. Grace allows them to acknowledge the pain without becoming the pain, to live through the disappointment without letting it define who they are. They are living proof that your scars can make you softer instead of colder, and that kind of softness is a strength that often gets overlooked in a world obsessed with toughness. Grace is not weakness. It is the deliberate choice to face hardship without becoming harsh yourself. You'll notice it in the way they listen. Someone may be ranting, someone may be hurting, someone may be lost in their own storm, and an older woman will sit there, patient, understanding, never rushing, because she knows what it feels like to need space without judgment. That patience comes from her own battles, the ones she never told anyone about, the ones that taught her silence can be more healing than speeches. Carrying unspoken battles with grace gives her empathy that can't be faked because it's built on lived experience, and that empathy becomes a gift she offers freely to others. They also know that carrying battles doesn't mean carrying them alone. Grace doesn't mean isolation, it means wisdom in choosing where to place your trust. They may not share their struggles with everyone, but they do share with the right people, the ones who have earned their confidence, the ones who have proven they can handle the truth without judgment. That kind of selective vulnerability is what keeps them strong, because they release just enough of the weight to keep moving forward while still keeping their dignity intact. Grace is not silence for the sake of pride, it is balance, knowing when to hold and when to release. At the heart of it, carrying unspoken battles with grace is about strength that doesn't scream, resilience that doesn't brag, and courage that doesn't need validation. It is about walking into a room with a smile even though your heart is heavy. It is about offering kindness when the world has been unkind to you. It is about continuing to stand tall even when life has given you every reason to fall. Older women embody this lesson not because their battles are small, but because their grace is greater than the weight they carry, and that is what makes them powerful in ways most people will never fully understand. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, as if the person who doesn't respond has nothing to say or no courage to speak. But older women know silence can be more powerful than words. They've lived through the moments where speaking too quickly made things worse, where arguing endlessly solved nothing, where explaining themselves over and over only drained their spirit. Silence, when used with intention, becomes a tool, a shield, and sometimes even a weapon, because it communicates what words never could. It says, I don't need to justify myself, I don't need to match your noise, I don't need to prove my worth, and that message speaks volumes without a single sound. They've learned that silence is not the absence of strength, but the presence of control. Anyone can lash out, anyone can argue, anyone can fill the air with words, but it takes discipline to stay quiet when you could shout. It takes wisdom to pause when you could fight, and it takes maturity to recognize that not every battle is worth your voice. Younger people often rush to respond, thinking fast words mean power, but older women know that true power often silence, when chosen, also teaches others how to treat you. If someone tries to provoke and you respond calmly or not at all, you teach them that their power over you is limited. If someone tries to drag you into chaos and you choose quiet, you show them your boundaries without needing to explain them. Older women have mastered this art because they know explanations are not owed to everyone. Silence places the responsibility back on others to reflect on their behavior, and in many cases, it creates the shift that no amount of arguing ever could. In the end, silence is one of the clearest languages they speak. It says, I am in control, I am listening, I am not shaken, and I refuse to waste my energy on what doesn't deserve it. Older women understand that sometimes the most powerful voice is the one that chooses not to be heard, because silence, used with wisdom, carries a weight no argument could ever match.